Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on Zoom and in the library. We have a live studio audience as well as an audience at home. Tonight, I'm delighted to welcome author Kay Tobler Liss for a conversation with Joseph Coté of Friday Exploration Read Aloud fame on our YouTube channel for a conversation about her recent novel, Coming Home. And before we get started, I'll remind folks on Zoom that you can type questions or comments into the Q&A, and at the end, I'll read some of them out loud. And I'll just hand it over to you guys. Let's get started.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. And allow me to introduce Her Highness, Kay Tobler Liss, who is not only a marvelous author, but a wonderful friend of mine, and we have Shakespeare in common, but that's another story we shan't go into. But Kay, congratulations on your second book. We'll squeeze in comments about your first book later because I loved it so much. But for now, let's focus on this book, which is called Coming Home. And I'm going to ask you to tell us, rather than me ramble on about all your incredible accomplishments and through life since childhood, I turn it over to you to tell us a little bit about the journey that you have enjoyed getting to this point of your second book.
Okay, not just writing the book, my whole journey.
Oh, no, whatever you think would give us great insight into writing.
I've been writing since I was a little girl. I used to go out into the woods where I grew up. We had 10 acres of woods and meadows, and I used to write poetry from the time I could write. So I just loved writing poetry. And then I studied literature in college, and poets were some of my favorite writers. And then I went into journalism because even though I wanted to be a creative writer, I was a little daunted by the idea and thought I should do something practical. So I became a journalist and worked in New York. And then I dabbled a little bit with the little skits and stuff and creative writing and poetry. And then finally, I decided I was going to write a novel. Because that's what I've always really wanted to do. So I did write one in my mid-30s, and it was very exciting because I had an agent, a really big agent in New York who really liked it. And he wanted me to make some changes to it, but I couldn't agree with him, and I was very naive and stupid. So that was that. And then I went on, and then my first book I wrote about 10 years after that, The Last Resort, and then this. So the reason I write fiction at all is because I want to bring the idea of our deep intrinsic connection to nature to people. I feel that's what I want to write about, and so I designed my books around that idea. And the first one came to me because I was living on this piece of land in New York on Long Island that was being threatened with development, and there was a whole history of a Native American tribe living on that piece of land. And I've always been really interested in Native Americans and what happened to them. So that put me on this journey of discovering what happened to them. And I created characters in the present, but also historical characters I was faithful to their history. So it was a really enjoyable journey to write that. And then this one came along because actually I thought about this story before I wrote that one, because it is based on my family. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to write about certain aspects of my family, and I might as well say it now. I had a brother who died when he was 21, and it was a very unresolved thing that happened in our family because we were a disparate family at that point, so we never really talked about it. And I feel this is one of the really strong things that I think people are very interested in today, is this sort of buried grief that is unresolved in families. But the strongest theme is the nature one for me. That's the most important thing.
And I would second that motion and say that in both books, I felt that nature was really a leading character.
Mhm.
I so loved The Last Resort, not only because of my own fascination with Native American history, but taking place in Montauk, way out there into the middle of the ocean, it seemed, and the history and the research that you did. Of course, that's where you had part of your growing up process. And nature is the key here. We're going to get more to nature in just a moment, but let us make sure that we talk a little bit about the title first, because the title of a book sometimes is, oh yes, okay, let's open and read. And sometimes as you read the book, at least this happened for me, as I read the book, I began to realize, wait a minute, it's not coming home as I thought it meant coming home. It's this other coming home. And the farther I got into the book, obviously, I realized there were several aspects of your title. Can you just sort of elaborate on that just a tad bit? What's the most obvious to people like me would be?
Well, it is a physical coming home, because the story starts out with the different members of this family, 4 generations, get together for a Christmas dinner in North Carolina. But that is the sort of least important meaning of coming home, because it really is people are coming home to themselves. I think I actually say at one point that the people are lost to themselves, and it's because there are things that are missing to the sort of puzzle of their lives, some aspect, and they're all trying to figure it out, and they go on these different journeys, physical journeys, to find places that will connect with them, perhaps with this buried, hidden thing that they're trying to figure out in their lives. So that's the most important thing of coming home, and coming home to nature, of course, and that is because they discover these buried things, secrets in their past, through connecting to nature. So that is the overarching home, is our home in nature. And I do believe that we all have special places from our childhoods or our past that really meant a lot to us. And so they all have these special places. And so another coming home. So that's really it.
That's enough. Another very unique thing about the coming home concept is the book is 142 pages. And the first 47, if I'm not mistaken, is about coming home to this town in North Carolina. So, and I want to talk about that in a moment. But the rest of the book, the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey says, is really the second theme, the coming home. The first part is simply getting to North Carolina. We've got the daughter in New York City, and we've got the son, forgive me for forgetting, where is he coming from?
Georgia.
In Georgia. That's right, Savannah, Georgia, which he loves, the weather. So we've got them actually coming home. Christmas is also a sentimental holiday. So I'm setting the stage for something I'm going to ask you later about being ready for change. And I think if there's any time during the year, maybe Christmas is a great place to set your theme. But then the next 100 pages, I felt when I read it, when I got to the bottom of page 47, I said, with the most dramatic line, a single line in the book, you sit there and think, I think I know what might happen, but how is she going to do it all in the remaining 105 pages? So it's a very fascinating thing that the reader could, maybe, when you read it, feel that, I'm catching on. Everybody coming home, meaning the two, I want to say another thing about coming home, is coming home to relationships that are not necessarily the family. And let's stay on characters just for a second. The two children are coming home to a strong trio of female nuclear family members. So we've got grandmama, and then we've got mama, and then we've got auntie over here. So we're coming up to a very strong female nuclear family for various reasons. And challenging opportunities there, but also challenging opportunities between daughter and son, and daughter and mother, and son and granny, et cetera, et cetera. Is there anything you'd like to say about any of that, the choices you made? I realize it's a bit of autobiographical, but you really set out a power triangle in many different directions. Was that a big challenge to get that all clean in 47 pages?
Yes, it was a challenge, but I had the characters pretty clearly in my mind that they are based on true people. But the dynamics between them, I invented a lot, but some of it was true. The mother and daughter relationship was quite true. And the father and the mother, that's something that was true, but I really developed it in a different way than was reality. So it was challenging, but I think with the women, the most important thing to me was to be true to their voices, especially my grandmother and my great aunt, because they were such strong characters. And I feel this is a novel, it's not a memoir, it's not an autobiography, but the thing I want, it is fiction, but I want to be true to their voices, to honor them, because it's important to me to honor my ancestors.
Yes, yes.
And to be true to their voices. And voice is a very interesting term. It can mean a lot of things, because there's a way that they talk, there's a language that they use, and there's also the identity of themselves. What is that? Who is that person? And that's not always revealed in somebody's, what they say, but maybe underneath what they say, you see something. And that's.
And the connections, so what they're saying, but what other people may not even understand what just was said between those two characters, because they've got something they've got to work out, right? There's another very, very significant character, of course, in the book, and you spoke of your brother earlier, so we need not go too far on this, but the third child is Evan, who has died before the novel begins. And this is such a powerful voice. Let me go back to that word, a powerful voice. So between nature as being everywhere and Evan also being everywhere, there was a feeling of mysterious powers, let me say, for me anyway, when I was reading it. And I think he has such a strong influence on the resolution of the book. I felt that anyway. So I quite like that character, even though he wasn't in the action. There's also a sense of, you said it earlier about people missing themselves. And then I brought up the idea of reconnecting or connecting anew relationships. So these five people, the three women and the two children, so you have five characters, all have things going on amongst them, but also have their own lives that they're trying to live. And I thought you did a beautiful job on by the end of the book, without giving it away. Would that be giving it away? No, I don't think so. They're not only open to each other, to themselves, and they're open to where the tough, scratchy areas were with others in the fivesome. There's also that great hope. They're inviting people back in, or for the first time. I'm not going to say anything more about that because I'll give away too much. But that's another dimension of it.
Yeah.
Of this coming home and this is
Each other.
coming home to each other and coming home to myself enough that I'm now able to bring somebody from the outside in. Beautiful. That was really beautiful.
They're coming together.
Yes, coming together and 152
I-
pages or whatever. I kept turning at the end of the book. Thinking, but this needs to be here.
Short books, what am I gonna say? I like to pack it in.
Yes, you did. You done it. You done it. You done it right. The timeline is also, I think, a very fascinating thing. I mean, I've gone on about so much said so beautifully in so short a time. But the timeline is crucial. Again, it's Christmas to Christmas. So as everybody departs, or it literally departs, the two children, yeah, after the first Christmas, and everyone in the household, the three ladies, pull away and sort of go back to their regular lives. Then there's so much going on in their minds that you don't talk about, but it's there in the brew. In order to accomplish what you accomplish by the last page of the book, it's brewing because of the end of the first third of the book, which we're not going to talk about that because it's so powerful. But by the time we get there, and so things move, I felt, quite fast.
Yeah.
Until you reminded me, hey, whoa, there's 365 days in the year, and we have gone Christmas to Christmas.
Right. Yeah, Joseph was asking me before about, it seemed to be a very kind of a quick resolution to one relationship, and that was the brother Daniel and his wife Deirdre, who were separated. But it was a year. And it seems sudden because it's a very compressed story, but
Yeah.
it wasn't really that sudden.
Well, of course, from the first page, you were talking about my family. Of course, I realize.
Yeah.
And my family has taken 75 years. We haven't resolved things yet. So that's why I was thinking, God, that was. But it was also the brother sister.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. My point here is I felt everybody, all five of those, and then if we add in the other two men who come into the picture, everyone seemed ready to make change.
It's because someone, I think in another book talk, said, "Okay, it's all gets resolved. There's one misfit in the end." And I said, "Well, I feel that they've been through enough. They get to have a happy ending." And not only that, but I just feel there's so much grim stuff going on in the world, and I don't know, so much literature that I read contemporary, it's not happy. It's just, and why not? Why can't we have? I mean, I think we're born for happiness, and there's just so much that derails us from that. But we can get back to it, and it's there, and I feel that they deserved it. They
deserved it. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I do want to be clear, it's not all peaches and cream at the end. We are in North Carolina and he comes from Georgia, so peaches and cream. It's not all peaches and cream. They all have work to do. They all have work to do. We're missing one person by the end. No, great aunt is also missing by the end. Is she not?
No, she's
No, so there. Okay, and she was. Yeah.
The only one who's missing is the grandmother who dies.
But all of the new connections, the old connections, reconnect, they have work to do. It's not, we don't want to say that it's a happy ending in that there's great hope for everybody. And that sounds a little rosy, but they got a lot of work to do still, don't they, really? But the ground is set and you don't doubt. I did not doubt that next Christmas, another 365 days. Let's go back to something that I know you love so much, and it's influenced both of your books, and you started with this comment, is this very strong feeling in your two first books maybe in all 200 of the books that you will continue to write, is nature. And it is simply, look at that pretty sunset. There's something about walking with nature. There's something about nature talking. I'm sounding corny a little bit here, but things like the magnolia blossom.
Oh, yes.
The magnolia plays a good role in this book. And at one point, it's almost as though Midsummer Night's Dream, it's sort of handed in the right place at the right time. And yet I was totally believable. It wasn't corny, silly Midsummer Night's Dream for grade school.
I really like that part.
It's very strong.
Because it just came to me too. I was thinking about this beautiful magnolia tree down there in my mother's in the home and in the yard, and just how beautiful the magnolia blossom is. Ginny is a gardener, and she agrees that magnolia is a beautiful flower, and it's so has such a dichotomy of color, you know, the purple and so it just came to me that this is a perfect metaphor, these colors, for what Daniel is trying to explain to his estranged wife, what he just realized in this trip back to his home and the visit to the pine grove, and what he understood there. The magnolia blossom was perfect metaphor, with the pink of newness and new life, and then the purple of being bruised and hurt. And so I just, you know, and sometimes those things just come upon you as a writer, and you say, whoa, I've got to grab that. That's pretty good.
Now let me make that into 5 paragraphs. But even though that's a very obvious one in the book, the greater one in the book, the most powerful one in the book, is not the pine forest. You mentioned that between the brother and the sister, right? It is, of course, the end of the first third of the book in the redwood forest. It's not redwoods, I realize, but that's the feeling you're giving us, is these enormous grand
live oak
trees, huge trees. And it is the first resolution, I felt. And for the one who deserved it most, I felt that was for Grandmama. And just the idea of looking up, how do you describe the sun coming through these enormous trees, and Grandmama as the leader and the most respected of the family, actually feeling onto the tree and feeling, I don't think I'm giving away too much, no, the heart that the former husband, boyfriend, had put with the initials on that tree so many years ago. And that, I felt, is what gives her the wonderful, beautiful inspiration for what she says to the rest of the family. I think that's your greatest 4 pages out of 152, but it's the most powerful nature thing, I feel. Do you agree? Not them, you.
I do. That's my favorite chapter, and it's the one that I read at my readings. But I thought I would read something different. But now I feel.
No, I haven't given away really what happens. I've just given away the tree. Well, speaking of reading, why don't you read a beautiful section that recurs, I think, what, 3 times during the book, or at least twice?
This is actually a part that I haven't read yet. I've read parts of the Pine Grove, and I've read parts of the Lover's Oak.
The Lover's
Oak.
Oak.
Talking about the grandmother, and it's just a kind of beautiful microcosm of you know, what the whole story is about. And it's very dramatic and short. But so one of the themes that I introduced in the beginning of the book at the Christmas dinner is the idea of humus, and the word humus coming from the word, well, humility, and humus being the root of that word. And that starts a whole conversation about humility and our connection to the earth, because humus means earth. And so later on in the book, it comes back around. And so this is the chapter called Fort Tryon Park. And Fort Tryon Park is a beautiful park in New York City. If you don't know it, it's up way up on the upper west side. And it's just this gorgeous park, not quite as big as Central Park, but it's a place where I used to go when I lived in and worked in New York for just a respite from the city. And it also contains this beautiful museum called the Cloisters, which is a medieval abbey monastery, and it's just beautiful. So Lydia, the main character, is walking in this park because she's about to dance in it. She's taken up dance again. Those who have read it know that this part of her journey is just rediscovering this love she had for dance.
And for the folks at home, explain who Lydia is of all
I
these
was
women.
gonna tell you, Lydia is the
Forgive me.
main character, and she is the daughter, and she starts this whole thing going by going down. We meet her in the beginning in New York City, and then she goes down to be with her family. So she goes on this journey and rediscovers dance. And now in this part, which is toward the end, she's in Fort Tryon Park back in New York, and she is about to join her dance mates, and they're going to put on this dance in the park. So Lydia strolls along the path to Heather Garden. The dogwoods and crabapples are in bloom. Interspersed amongst the majestic elms, they create a magical deep pink and white understory. White and purple iris and foxglove abound in the lower vistas. She comes to a circular setting of slate ringed with beds of columbine and red, pink, and white tulips, mixed with magenta and white rhododendrons. A marble fountain sits in the center of the closest circle, and along the farthest ring, shaggy goat's beard lends the garden a wilder look. She's glad she's arrived early before her dance class meets to take in the gardens by herself. The exuberant color and the variety of shapes create just the right background for the dance they'll perform, she thinks. Although a very different place than her wild meadow of memories she danced in as a girl, she remembers passing blooming dogwoods and rhododendrons in the woods on her way to the meadow in the spring. How satisfying when humans can work with nature and create something so aesthetically pleasing. Like ballet itself, Lydia reflects. Many of the steps seem so unnatural. After all, what can be more unnatural than standing on point? Yet, in the gracefulness and illusion of effortlessness a good ballet dancer can achieve, we can see an exquisite expression of nature, of human nature, can't we? And if we properly understood ourselves, she ponders further, we would see ourselves as an ultimate expression of nature itself, a crowning glory of the poetic evolution of life on this earth, and thus responsible to the rest of creation to care for it and love it. For this we need humility. Humility, that word. Now Lydia recalls the conversation at Christmas when its meaning came up at the dinner table. Humus, meaning earth, a returning to the earth, a remembering of what is at the base and the beginning of everything, to what is common ground. She smiles at this great circle of thought from now to back then, before she had rediscovered dance, but had intuited what connecting to nature, her own, and that which is out in the world, might actually mean for her.
Rather. And it's Grandmama who speaks those lines originally, isn't it? About humus and.
No, that was Lydia.
From the beginning. No, I meant in the beginning.
In the conversation.
Oh, really? I'm sorry.
But the grandmother is the one who agrees with her that yes, humility is something we all could use some more of.
Which we agree about the whole world. And no small place.
Yeah.
Speaking of place, for those of us who don't know the Carolinas, is that the true location of your family experience, or did you select North Carolina?
Southport was a place where we went, and but there was another town. Once my family, my mother's aunt and the grandmother moved from there, they went down to Georgia. But I couldn't go back and forth, so we had Christmases later on in Georgia. And that's really where the camellia bush was, but I couldn't, it was too complicated to do that. So I just kept everything in Southport, plus the fact that my great aunt never went to Georgia. She died in Southport.
I see.
So I couldn't get.
Yeah, flights get canceled so often. It doesn't go any further than you did. But what I wanted to bring that up is for someone who's not been to the Carolinas myself. This, for me, and it's only in my mind, it's probably not in anybody else's mind anywhere, but there is a cordiality, hospitality, a little bit of softness, for me anyway, I think, the Southern hospitality for a Northern boy. And I think that lent to the book itself. If you had been outside Chicago, I think cold and frigid, and I'm not going to agree with you on anything. As opposed to, there was just something about that location for me, and the fact that the sun came up from Savannah. And it was also great that the daughter came from New York City, and we get that toughness of getting out of town and getting on the train and getting through the airport and all that sort of stuff. So there's all that going on, and this is sort of a, maybe I'm just saying it seemed to be the right milieu for resolution. I don't know if I'm on the right track, but you might not realize it because it's your home, but
it also creates a tension that when she first arrives, remember,
without doubt, she's stressed.
she says, oh, all of this like happy family, because they grew up in New York on Long Island. And so the mother's trying to recreate some kind of happy little homestead here, and she just kind of thinks she's a little cynical about it. But
they all arrive with a bit of baggage, a lot more baggage than me. But the tension of coming down from New York versus his cool and calm, the brother is a totally different energy. And that this is what begins the clash. The first 50 pages, I really honestly felt, whoa, man, these people will never solve anything together. Just like my family, actually. So of course I was very happy as it progressed. So let's see if we have any questions or comments from those folks that are here with us tonight, or from at home.
If you have questions on Zoom, there is one already, but feel free to type them into the chat or Q&A. We have one on Zoom, so I can read it out.
Let us read that. You can think a little more about yours.
We have a question from AA.
Okay.
Why did you choose to write your book in present tense?
oh, good question.
That is very good.
For the immediacy of it, I actually my first book is written in the present tense too. But this one is written in the third person, as opposed to the first book written from the first person's point of view. So I wanted to get away from that. But I really like the first person. I mean, the present tense. Actually, the third book I'm working on now is written in the past tense. So it was a little bit hard to get used to at first, but.
So you're tasting, it's a tasting, isn't it? Your career, now tasting.
It's the immediacy, I guess, I like about it.
Yes, that's a good question, actually. And then on top of that, just speaking of different styles, this book would really lend itself very well to a play. And we love plays that are home connected and resolution connected, especially because everyone can identify in one way or another with somebody in the book. It would be hard to do perhaps the ballet scene, the cloisters, but still getting them back where they belong, back in Georgia for him to work on with his ex, and her back in New York with her new boyfriend. And we're still in Southport with the mama's relationship. So I'm bucking on a play here. So I think
No.
well, that's Switzerland is in the mind. It's not a real place anyway. So. And some questions from some of our folks here who I can see they all have one. Don't fight it.
Just a comment about, you mentioned the skit, but I would like to see a movie, a short movie.
Oh, that's next.
Because I like to give that tree, symbolizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. and making nature the leading character without knocking you over the head with it. But
Because there's so few characters.
yes, yes. And the morning light and the afternoon light, we're on the river at one point, which is a beautiful moment in the book. So there's that, I don't know, the ripples on the river when they're on the river, that scene, I left that out of the forest looks. The broken bell, don't give that away.
Well, and along those lines, I was thinking the same thing, and you mentioned earlier, everybody likes a happy ending, and Kay, you said it. That it seems like any movie you go to, you know, it's like, I don't wanna go see it unless it's got a happy ending to it, because I don't, or at least,
Because
you know, and give me an ending. I hate the ones where I have to walk out, you know,
Confused.
where they purposely leave it ambiguous at the end, and you're like, no, I just tell me it ended.
You're trying to solve it at home.
Yeah.
But then you see so many articles for the next year explaining the ending. I think that actually started with television series where they always wanted a cliffhanger
Right.
every time. And now you go to a movie, and there was one I just read yesterday was explaining after the fall, not after the fall, that's another thing, but the something of a fall. I think it's a foreign film that's up for an Academy Award. And this article was about explaining the ending. No, please, I paid money for you to tell me the ending. Please get to that point.
I agree, there's so much bad news out there, right? And I've always been an environmentalist, and I just feel I do want to know what's going on. I do read a lot about what's going on, climate change, everything. But you know, where is the positive note? And so I felt I want to write a book that gives us some hope, some positive connection to, you know, if we just really thought about it, maybe, and cared, just as she says in that scene, then maybe we could turn things around if there were enough of us that felt that way. And you know, we've evolved from plants, from animals, and here we have this consciousness. It's not our responsibility to use it to better the world, the planet.
I think a sequel is required. I do think we need the next Christmas Day to see who succeeded and what the challenges were. I do think that you could certainly do that. Any other thoughts or questions? Anyone else on Zoom by chance?
They're all thinking.
They're all thinking
I have a
that,
question
yes.
as someone who has not yet read the book, so
I hope we haven't given away too much, but I don't think so.
would you say each of the characters has their own unique relationship to nature? And do you explore each of their relationships to nature, or is it like a couple characters that's really more of a focus?
I would say that with the brother, Daniel, the living brother, he's not really that connected. And it is only through going back to this pine grove that he realizes, you know, that he's connected. And the father is totally disconnected, really. He's a businessman. He's always been interested in just being a success and making money. And it's a revelation to him when he discovers this thing in Switzerland where he grew up that connected him to his sister. I don't want to give away.
No, don't give away any more than that, but
So,
I
no,
think-
some of them don't have an instinctive connection, but they
Part of each of their journees.
yes,
Well, I feel like they do have the connection.
They do.
They just disconnected from it
disconnected.
until
They
Lydia says, no, let's, you know,
Yeah.
do this thing.
yeah.
And it is the young people, bless their hearts, that have disconnected most, and we would, you know, expect that as the world is unfolded. But as soon as it hits them over, no, it doesn't hit them over the head. They're just in the right place at the right time. The search for the meadow, for example, it's not as though the world hasn't changed. She's searching for the meadow. This is the brother and sister. And searching for the meadow, and of course, development has enclosed and eaten up so much of that. So it isn't a big, fabulous meadow anymore, but right over there is a part of the meadow. So I really liked that thing. And the same way with the redwoods, I'll continue to call it the redwoods, we're in the wrong state, but that feeling of encroachment beyond it, but a sense of, I'm going to use the word magic, which sounds a little corny, but I just felt that there's that sort of magical, once you back, you know it. I could do the same, exactly. I remember as a child, we had a place called Backfield. It was a field, and it was way back behind our house, so it was called Backfield. And it was, you know, a 10-minute walk to get through the forest to get out there. And I remember falling in love with this big rock that I loved because it had been eroded with the water by the stream. And I rolled that thing back all the way back to my house. And if I went back there today, all those memories would come right back. I'm sure you feel the same, all of you. It's such a power. It's such a power. And even though they may not all be directly as hit by nature, so to speak, I think nature's moving the dials, moving. I felt that.
Yeah.
Even the banker boy, the brother, the son. I forget all names. I forgot my own earlier today. But the son, you know, he's a banker in Savannah, and you know, he softened. He softened.
Yeah.
Everybody softened.
Mhm.
Would you like to read another section that you've read at another reading before, or would you like me to read a section?
I want to hear the section that you said you've read before, but you weren't
The
going to
little-
read this
the
time.
little-
But do you want to give away the tree story?
Okay.
No, don't give that away, because you have to get to the end, and you should,
The lover's oath?
the
You don't
very
want me-
last line of the first third of the book. You don't want to say that.
Okay, don't say that. Okay, so
Oh, yeah, you could do that. I have it right here.
you did.
No, I want you to. This is the line you wouldn't want to give away. But you could, would you want to lead up to that?
It's very mysterious.
Well, it is the turning point in the book, and for me, it just knocked me over. I wasn't expecting that line.
Is that, what page are we?
It's on page 56, to be exact.
Okay, so,
I'll just move my lips while you're reading, so I'll feel as though I'm.
right at the beginning. You probably.
Put it in the space, yeah, create that magical space. for
Lovers are,
you.
they're all.
Tell the story, where are we? We're
Okay,
all
we're-
together
We're
on.
all together, she's summoned, she's going to die, she knows she's going to die. And so she has everybody around this tree, her favorite tree.
Redwood.
This live oak tree. They're all standing in a semicircle around the enormous tree, their eyes staring in wonder. They look up to see where the tree ends, but what commands their attention more is the astonishing horizontal nature of the thing. Its massive trunk is impressive enough, yet it's the maze of twisting, intertwining branches and vines that appear, at least to Lydia, to want to enfold them in all its dense brown and green realm. Zipporah alone looks on smilingly, as if encountering a dear friend after too long being apart. Leaning heavily on her cane, she walks up to the tree and touches its trunk with her free hand. She feels along the deeply ridged bark, perhaps finding a sense of kinship in its aged exterior. Her fingers continue their searching, which makes Eugenia, her daughter, begin to worry if her mother's eccentricity had progressed into serious strangeness. Ah, here it is, Zipporah says excitedly, looking to the left side of the tree. And after all these years, hot diggity dog. She traces her fingers over a spot on the huge trunk, then turns to face everyone.
That's enough. Thank you very much. No, you get the feeling there, and may I read?
Yeah.
Yes, I want to talk about your wordsmithing, your choice of words. That's one of the biggest challenges of writing a book. It's this word or that word, and it makes all the difference in the world. And I love this little section. Again, we're giving Lydia the spotlight tonight, but that's okay. She deserves it. Lydia again recalls the image she had looking out over the Cape Fear River on her first night in Southport, arriving from New York City. How she imagined that the secret life breeding and decomposing in the muddy banks just below the shining surface was a metaphor for people like her grandmother and mother who, belying their vibrant personalities, kept so many secrets tightly bound inside. Secrets that, like the tiny creatures in the river's muddy banks, with time decompose, but never really die. Rather become part of the rich layer of matter that broadens and deepens over the years. Some of this rich matter pushes new thoughts, new forms through to the life-giving air above, but much of it remains hidden below and never and forever unknown. As if suddenly she's seeing through layers of stilty water that have clouded her vision. She realizes now that it's a metaphor for her too, by way of one of God's beautiful creations, a meadow. Some of the rich, buried matter in her life has at last pushed through to the life-giving air above. Now, come on, is that beautiful? Congratulations, Miss Wordsmith. Thank you for letting me read. I'll pay you later.
I like that.
That's a beautiful section, and that's the beginning of change. I actually have a big tab here.
Because she uses that metaphor a lot.
She does, that's
Yeah,
correct,
Because
yes.
that's a sort of a very distinctive physical part of that part of the world. It's the South, those muddy banks and
That's
that
right,
strong
yes.
smell, you know.
But she makes it sound beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
and hopeful, and she sees it as blurring your vision. I love that image of blurring your vision. I couldn't see it before because I wasn't ready to see it, or I didn't want to see it, or whatever. And so for her to identify that, that is what I've called the beginning of change. And the one you read, I've called the fall. So, so questions, anything you'd like to, we didn't touch on, we've covered a lot, but we want to make sure that you have your opportunity.
I think I said.
Yes, when is the next book going to be ready?
Maybe, I don't know, or maybe 6 months or so.
6 months.
Wow.
Oh,
It's got 100 pages in.
did you want me to write the sequel to this one? And then we can have a double book reading the next time.
Maybe about a year I spent living in Mexico.
In Mexico, so we're really
So it's
moving.
very, exotic locales.
But there's gotta be
Culture and
needs and
nature.
wants and problems. We're gonna have a, okay.
Is it a memoir?
No,
No.
not really. But I mean, I did spend a year
Yeah.
there, but I invent a lot. Not really a memoir.
There's
It's
got
the
to
same
be-
kind of thing where I heard this term the other day. I'm taking this senior college class with somebody. I think she's on Zoom right now. Studying some contemporary female novelists, and one of the terms that came up was autofiction, because these young women, contemporary, they don't want to create what they say, the fake characters. Why should I create a fake character that I can write about myself, but not as a memoir or autobiography? Create this sort of other thing, and it's called autofiction.
There's a new word every day.
So,
Autofiction.
yeah,
So you only write about people you know, or your characters are people you know enough about.
yeah, but exactly.
Which is what this
This
is
is
rather
what,
like.
kind of what I'm doing, and I never had heard that term before. And I thought, oh,
Okay.
you're breaking the boundaries of fiction, nonfiction, autobiography, memoir.
right.
It's something different. And I guess that's it. I never thought that
Okay.
maybe that's what I'm doing.
But if you're going to Mexico, there have to be some sleazy parts, some juicy, colorful parts. So we will guess which are real and which are not.
Well, I want to thank Julia for having me here and doing all this setup, And Joseph
Oh, it's what's fun. I love your book. I love your
for
book.
interviewing me and making it so much fun, and for all of you coming and the people on Zoom, thank you.